Welcome to the start of 5 weeks of Halloween-themed Unbuckled Comics. Welcome to Unbuckled Comics. If you're new, there's a liability form on the back table next to the chainsaws and hammers and other tools of mass murder and destruction. If you're returning, thank you for your continued support. I'm your host, Unbuckled Cape, and today we are talking about where monsters lie. Um, and this is the title is like lie as in like sleep, not lie as in like fib. Uh, but before we head out on patrol, let's gather some intel first. Linktree, linktr.ee/unbuckled comics is where you can find all of my conveniently placed uh, pages, Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube. Um, yeah, I think I hit all of them our first time around. Normally I forget YouTube. Okay. Yeah, so you want to head over there. Instagram is probably the one you want to hook up on, or YouTube is just as good. Gotta get a video over on YouTube. Just haven't had a time to edit it. We have another Mrs. Kate guesses for the case file of Green Goblin, and while we're talking about case files and Green Goblin, we did start another Unbuckled tournament, and our first group of voting was this week. So our next Unbuckled tournament is just going to be who we think the most interesting B-list DC character is. I picked 16 characters. This should give us a nice long tournament. I did fill out my bracket, and I do have your guys' bracket set up. As I say that, realize I don't have a pen right here. So we had our first round of voting for this tournament, and we had Orion, who is the adopted son of Highfather, ruler of New Genesis, uh, and then I should have had a period there. And then the biological son of Darkseid, ruler of Apocalypse. Orion is one of the strongest new gods, and he is absolutely fearless. And he went up in the poll against Victor Zsasz. Victor Zsasz is a Batman villain, or a Bat villain, if you will, with an ugly exterior. This mass murderer carves tally marks into his skin to count the number of victims he has racked up. The voting on this one was actually really fun because Orion was running away with the votes, but Victor Zsasz ended up pulling out the win by one single vote. So Victor Zsasz, let me write that down here. Zsasz moves on, and our next group is going to be The Question and Firestorm. So if you are looking for a way to vote, you can do that on our Discord, which is also available on that link tree. So Discord is the one that I missed after bragging about it. But yeah, so if you want to join in the Unbuckled tournament, this is going to be a good one. We have 16 characters. Just reading them randomly in the list that I have. It's Etrigan, Adam, Killer Moth, Booster Gold, Orion, who is no longer with us, RIP, Black Lightning, Vixen, Tattoo Man, Zsasz. He has the first W of the tournament. Prometheus, The Question, Big Barda, Polka Dot Man, Red Tornado, Firestorm, and Jonah Hex. So if you would like to take any kind of participation in voting for these characters paired up, the next round is The Question against Firestorm. Then we have Tattoo Man against Barda, Booster Gold against the Atom, Vixen against Etrigan, Killer Moth against Polka Dot Man, Jonah Hex against Prometheus, Red Tornado taking on Black Lightning. So those are our first round matchups, and thank you all for voting. We actually had a really good number of votes on our Discord. Actually, I'm kind of curious because what I do like about this as opposed to how we did it on Patreon when we had a Patreon. So I can actually see who voted for who. So taking a look here, just out of pure curiosity, um, I see that someone voted for both of them. Guess I didn't put any rolls out. Oh well. So there you guys have it. Our first round of most interesting BCB list characters. Um, so speaking of Discord, if you are on our Discord, I have a channel that I named Sneak a Peek, and it is basically what my solicitation episode used to be when we had that as a regular episode on the show, and then we moved it to a Patreon episode, and then I had to back things down, so we backed things down, and we dropped that. I have an app, and my app is called Comic Geeks. And I go in that and I just take screenshots of all the new number ones coming up 2 months in advance. So the solicitation is exactly like how I did, except I'm not writing the synopsis this time. I'm just sending screenshots of what is there. Much more convenient for me. It's quicker, and you guys still get all of those. If you would like those, you can go to and join our Discord and you get to see all of that. But I do kind of miss giving information on those. So at the end of those episodes, I had an unbuckled pick of the month. I'm not going to be doing an unbuckled pick of the month. Instead, I'm going to give you guys my unbuckled pick of the week. As long as I can remember to do this every week, I will go through, check out what's the new number ones coming out that week, and every week in the show you will have an unbuckled pick of the week. This week I'm going to go with this week being October 2nd, 2024. I'm going to go with DC All In Special. This is following the events of Absolute Power. The heroes of the core DC universe have fought against the deep division in the world around them to usher in a new era of unity. And just in time, too, because Darkseid has returned. This is probably a really good jumping on spot for anyone that is just getting into some of the bigger DC arcs. It seems like it's going to be a good place to start. The problem with it is because it is an all-in special, I am going to imagine that there's probably going to be a bunch of books tagged on to the end of this. But even still, through Marvel and IDW, Dynamite, Image Comics, and Boom Studios and Dark Horse, there really wasn't anything that really jumped out at me for new number ones. DC actually had my top two. Uh, DC, I Know What You Did Last Crisis was another one that jumped out at me just because of the title. But excuse me, there is a ton of Halloween stuff coming out this month. And maybe next week one of those Halloween ones will get picked for my Unbuckled Pick of the Week, a new segment that we are doing here on Unbuckled Comics, just to feel like we're giving you guys some more information outside of our comic reviews. I feel like I need to do that. We also are doing if stuff comes across that I see, uh, I will do a bargain bin. I did not have time this weekend to look for any major sales, but I will tell you if you guys go to Thrift Books, the app Thrift Books, a lot of times I can find graphic novels, paper trade backs on Thrift Books for really cheap, and typically they come in good shape or good enough shape. Uh, so don't be afraid to look around for comics to find good deals. Right now, let's see, that is out of stock. Actually, I have some saved. So Infinity Wars on Thrift Books right now, the trade paperback at a very good condition, and their descriptions are pretty accurate. If it says very good, it's very good. 17.29. That's a couple dollars cheaper than what the a new printing of that would be. Infinity Gauntlet on there. The best value that they have for it is 11. $2.09. So two, uh, there, I think those are both priced around $20 to $30 normal paperback. So we're gonna give my bargain of the week to Infinity Gauntlet on thriftbooks.com. If you are looking for a bargain, I just threw that one real together right off the hip. There you go. And the last thing that we have to do before we get into our review is listener comments, and we have one this week. It's been a while since we've heard from our listeners, and it comes from I'm looking for the comic, but I don't have to because I remember what it says. But anyway, it comes from Pickle. Pickle says monsters should be more honest. DBH. Well, Pickle, you're going to find out here in this review that these monsters don't lie, like hardly at all. They are, uh, if anything, really true to who they are and what they do and what they like and what they dislike and, what gets them going. So I hope you guys enjoy this review. This book is a fun book, in my opinion, and it's a great start to the October Halloween season.
So it's absolute total coincidence that I scheduled this for October of this year, which ended up being the same time that the follow-up to the story is releasing its first issue, which is Where Monsters Lie, Hold Day Sack. Um, or is it my superpower? I've done that quite a bit during the show where I accidentally release things that coincide with actual events happening before I presumably knew about them. Maybe I'm just psychic and I don't know about it. I know this is audio and you can't see it, but I just grabbed a tuft of hair on my head and gave it a good tug to see if I'm going bald. Just wanted to make sure I'm not like turning into Professor Xavier or something. Either way, one of the reasons I bought this is because I wanted to expand my comic book reading horizon. Horror is not my thing. This seemed more of like the 80s slasher, funny haha type horror, and I thought it would be a nice way to dip my toe into that genre and give reviews on books other than just the superhero genre. Uh, it expanded my horizon. I I like this book. Don't get me wrong. It's four issues and it's good at what it does, but I'm not in love with it, and I think I liked it better the first time around. So, of course, before we jump into that, let's talk about the writer. Carl Starks wrote this. He actually wrote Pine and Merrimack, which is a book that I have earmarked, and I have been looking to find a trade just, organically in the wild for quite a while. That is another type of like supernatural thriller that I was really interested when it first came out, but decided not to buy the single issues to it, that I would just eventually grab the trade. Also wrote The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, Creep Show, and Lobo Cancellation Special. The artist, we have Hotar, Hoder, something like that. Kowalski, like the penguin from Madagascar. He is an artist. He has drawn Bloodborne, 30 Days of Night, The Witcher, The Dark Tower, yes, the Stephen King Dark Tower, and Wolfenstein. Looking at his art, looking at the books that he has worked in, I think it was pretty easy to tell what kind of art we're going to get for this one. The dude is a violence drawer. So basically the premise of this book is that mass murderers, killers, like, they have each of the killers that are involved in this have a spin on like an 80s horror movie slasher type person. There's a dude that wears a paper bag over his head and carries the chainsaw around him, kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's the puzzle man, who is basically um I guess it's the Soul movies, but is that what the character's name is? Anyway, he's kind of like that, where he puts people in these like torture traps. Um, there is a doll that's kind of Chucky-esque, but a lot more prim and proper. His name is Frankie. I can't tell you what his last name is because I can't say certain things on this show. I don't want to have to put the explicit on it. There's another man that I will be referring to as FM. I definitely cannot say his name on this show. But he is just a twisted individual. There's a clown. His name is Richard. There's another guy that is Pack Rat. He kind of reminds you. He has like the Hannibal Lecter mask. There is every character in this you can equate to a cinematic horror movie villain. There's a guy. His name is like Daniel Dotson. He's basically Michael Myers. Get it? Like so we have all these, they're referred to as monsters, and they live in a gated community. That's what sold me. They live in a gated community, and a normal person is trying to hunt down the monsters. A total flip on the genre, and I was thinking it would be more of these killers being scared of this guy, or like maybe they were terrified of the normal people. That is not what I got with this book. What I got with this book works better than what I thought I wanted, but it's not what I thought. And they know, but they don't know that we know that they know that we know, you know. Anyway, issue number one, it starts with these kids escaping a house in said gated community. And as these kids are running around, knowing what the premise of the book was, I knew what was going to happen. But if you just like happen to pick this book up and start reading it, I don't think you would expect to see these kids run to another house for help and then be killed by all the neighbors. And that's exactly what happens. Leaving one kid, his name is Linus, to escape. All the other ones get killed. Linus heads to the cops, and the monsters end up having to have a meeting, kind of like a town hall meeting in the old lady's house. And the old lady, her name is Zell. She is the one that runs the community. And during this little group meeting of the community members, we learn that they have an HOA. We learn that they, for some reason, are kind of employed to do these mass murder killings, and they live in a gated community, and everything is basically taken care of for them. There's a gentleman his name is Wyatt. He also lives at this community, but he is one of the ones that help run it. Like he looks normal. There's like nothing to indicate that he is a monster, and like he goes out and buys their groceries so that these guys don't have to go out and get stuff, and he sets them up with the material. And there's this whole discussion that, Puzzle Man, and it's Puzzle Man, not Puzzle Man. Like there's a funny conversation about that between Linus and Agent Hayes, which we'll get to him in a second, but uh she's Zell is talking to the community about how they have simple rules and everything else is taken care of for them. They're the ones that hire the electricians to wire up the death traps. And like these guys can't go out and hire an excavating team to dig the pits for their steel spike, the holes that they leave in the ground. And like all this funny stuff that you don't really think of like how do these quote unquote monsters build these traps or get these holes dug and all this stuff. Well, now we have an answer. They are part of a group that I guess someone is employing them to create killings, and they hint that it's the devil, but there's no like supernatural thing going on here. It's just there is a mention that Daniel Dotson, who is the equivalent of Michael Myers, is the devil's favorite son, and he is going to be doing the Halloween killings again that year. Um, and he's going to be doing the killings at a certain fair that he was at 25 years earlier. And at that fair, he let one kid survive while he killed hundreds of people, including this kid's family. That kid is Connor Hayes, who ends up being in an orphanage, and then another man, um, his name is Saint Saint Juan Saint something is the name of this other man who kills everyone in this orphanage except for Connor Hayes. He gets away, and he ends up creating and turning himself into a weapon. He learns four types of martial arts. He studies the psychology of these mass murderers. He turns himself into a machine to hunt them, and then he becomes a special agent of the government who deals with these kinds of things. Um, it's a good setup. It is. We get Zell and Wyatt walking down the street talking about how difficult some of these characters are. There's the clown who during the meeting doesn't want to sit next to FM because he just creeps him out. And Zell's like, I told you once, Richard, already, there is no assigned seats. If you don't like being next to him, just move. As they're walking down the street, the clown has these trash cans out on the street, and she shouts at him and tells him that that's an HOA violation. You're not supposed to be able to see his trash. And it's just funny watching these killers, and they're creepy looking. All of them are creepy looking, and how they are dealing with like kind of normal life stuff and then like struggling with what their job is, which is mass murders. And like sorry, Puzzleman is in a funk with his job and his career, and he can't seem to figure out good puzzle traps anymore. And he has reverted to just everything revolving around traps involving a male member. If this were to turn into a movie or a TV show, I guess a movie is the best analogy. This is a hard R rating, by the way. This is not like when I read these books, I always think about what age are the boys going to be at when I will allow them to read this. Obviously, maturity level is always part of, and there should always be, judgment that can be based off of other things other than age. But in genuine sense, what age would they be for me to let them read this? Like 16 at the very earliest. I mean, this is a hard book. There's a lot of grotesque things in it. We will get to some stuff in issue 3. It's just vulgar language and a lot of messed up stuff. Um, but I'm an adult. I can read what I want. So, um, Zell and Wyatt are walking down the street, and they're talking about how like their problems, they talk about them as if they're normal. How FM has been buying all kinds of gardening tools, and Wyatt thought that he was coming up with like this master, really sadistic plan involving all of these gardening tools. But FM has actually lost his bloodlust and just really into gardening right now. And that's an unprecedented thing because they can't just let him go back to civilian life. But then he's taking up a lot here, and then new tenants move in, and they're like cannibals, and they have a they have what a monster called the nephew, who is basically very similar to the Michael Myers, which is Daniel Dotson. And how you can't have those two get close to each other or be in the same perimeter because they're basically the same type of killer, and that they will instinctively try to kill each other. And it's just a lot of weird funny stuff. Issue number 1 is actually more comical than anything. Um, so it ends with surprisingly very quickly the police, and at the charge of Connor Hayes, the whole police department going to this gated community. Only 4 issues. There's not a lot of time to really work on plots and things like that. Issue number 2, we see Special Agent Connor Hayes is the survivor of 2 incidents. Issue number 2 is actually where we get the flashback. Um, and the whole story of him learning to become a weapon to go kill the killers. It's a great plan, but the cops that he brought with him are unaware of just how dire the situation is, and they are easily taken out by the other monsters. Like they're standing around talking, and they're just being picked off one by one, and it's pretty gross. Um, the pages, there are a lot of red in this book, a lot of red, and it's not like dawn in the sky is that pretty pink red hue. No, it's blood. There's a lot of blood. Um, and as this is all happening, Connor is sitting down and talking with Zell about the community and what he has become and this and that. And she's kind of hinting at the fact that like he was let go for a reason. Like he didn't survive because he's special or anything like that. He she's hinting at something that we will get to in issue 4. Issue number 3, violence, blood, and a lot of death. A lot of death, both monsters and cops actually. Um, like a lot of death and a lot of blood. And there's only like 2 jokes in issue number 3. Issue number 2 was still a little bit lighter, but issue 3, there's not as much dialogue, and boy, does it turn up the violence. It is gory, and the only normal person that seems even half competent is Agent Hayes and maybe Linus a little bit. Like he's at least trying to run. But the cops are just kind of standing around getting killed, and then like when they start to try and fight back, it's already too late. They're surrounded and they're just getting killed and killed and killed and killed. And Hayes is like, you know, one shot, one kill, one shot, one kill. He gets in a knife fight with the guy that attacked him at the orphanage and easily takes him out. And then Daniel Dodson shows up and he is not as easily to kill. And that leads us into issue number 4. Um, issue number 4 shows us Starks, the gentleman who wrote this. He has a sick humor. Wilmhurst blows up with almost everyone being killed. And it turns out, as Connors goes home to his wife is the daughter of Wyatt, a mass murderer and one of the operators of the Wilmhurst gated community. And Connor's wife is also pregnant, leaving Connor with a hard choice: join the murderers and use his skill of mass murdering, which he demonstrated very well by killing almost all of the monsters, or be killed himself. Doesn't seem like much of a choice, and we really don't get an answer as to what he ends up choosing because it just kind of gives a quick flash over to Linus, who was trapped yet again by Puzzleman, and in a pretty nasty trap, he ends up getting out because he chose to cut off his own right hand. Right hand. I think Puzzle Master said right hand, but actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it's his left hand that gets cut off. Maybe he meant the choices on the switches at his right hand. Either way, uh, Linus is able to he ends up killing the puzzleman and takes off running and faints from the lack of blood. And this book ends with a panel of Linus waking up. His arm is bandaged. He's sitting next to FM and a gigantic dog that the community feeds bodies to. This book is pretty messed up. I mean, there's definitely more messed up comics out there, but out of the ones I read, like really I haven't done that much horror. Something is Killing the Children is the other one that I can think of, and that was more of a supernatural thriller. This one is just straight up violence and gore. And there is quite a bit of humor in the beginning, but the end there is no humor, and I can remember thinking, "Oh boy, I can't wait for the second one." And here we are probably a year later, and I mean I still want to see a sequel to this released. I'm hoping that this is a sequel and not a another story, like just a spin-off type deal. Like I want to see what happened to Linus and what Connor chooses and all that stuff. I'm still interested in it, but um is this a really great comic? If you're really into the genre and like spoofy type stuff and 80 slasher movies, like I could see there are people really really enjoying this out here. I like it. I don't love it. Um Fortunately, I think because of how specific this is to a certain person and what they want to see, like you have to be how am I trying to say this? Not anyone can pick up this book and enjoy it. This book is not for anyone, and I think that is where it's going to end up landing in a pick it up for me. Um, did I like it? Am I going to read the second one? Yes. For me, it's probably more into the get on it category for me personally, just because I really enjoyed all of the spook. Like I like 80s like the 80s slasher movie stuff. Like I really like that. So a lot of this stuff made me laugh. Some of the nods and tropes that they did and played off of, I got a kick out of. I'm interested in seeing what happens from here on out with Linus and Connor Hayes. Outside of that, um, the art is good. I don't like an overabundance of gore, so I was turned off issue number three. I didn't really care for a lot of the stuff that is depicted in issue number three just because it's not my thing, but um, it wasn't overly like, you don't see like intestines and insides. Well, sometimes you do, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to describe without an actual visual. Um, am I gonna go to sleep or try to go to bed tonight and have a hard time sleeping because of this book? No, it's not that bad. Um, I do think that this second read, I seen more of the horror side than what I did the first time around. I think the first time I read through it, it was just a little bit more of shock value of like some of the funny names that were in it because the doll Frankie, his last name is absolutely hilarious. And I got like I think I was stuck on some more of that stuff. And then this read through, I wasn't caught off guard by the out of pocket stuff, so I was reading in a little bit more to the horror side of it, and I think I am a little more turned off the second time around, but it's not a bad book. And the art's good. It's depicting things that I don't really want to see, but it doesn't mean that the art's bad. It's good. So I think it falls in the pick it up. Um, I don't know if it's worth going out and buying the trade right away. Maybe you only want to buy issues one and two and just read those and see like you know what I mean. I don't know if I would spend the full money on a trade. Not that the 4 issue trade of this probably isn't that expensive, but um, I was gonna look it up, but my guess is like $15 tops. So that is all I have for our first spooky edition of Unbuckled Comics. We started with Monsters Lie, so kicking off October the right way. And until next time, guys, get out there and save the world, you bunch of heroes.